get T-bill rate. If T-bill rate is 11, you will get 11% on your savings. If it goes to 12, you get 12%. It is also an opportunity for those of you who have somewhere in an account where banks are paying you 3%, 4%. It is time you move that to the Hustler Fund and you will get 11%. It is good information. Whatever you do with it, is up to you. So, and number 3, we have had a conversation and a decision on savings. So, this is fundamental. And let me also was to remove the penalization, the blacklisting, the condemnation of people, but to give them a chance to improve on their credit rating. And that is what we intend to achieve. So that is one item that I wanted us to have a conversation about. I will take a few questions on that story as soon as I'm done. The second issue that I want us to have a conversation this evening is about jobs and employment. And we're all aware that close to 1 million people young people enter the job market in Kenya. We also know that currently approximately 200 to 250,000 get a chance to be absorbed. And we have about 700,000 people who get into the job market and they have, to do one thing or another in the informal sector. And therefore it is important for us to think as a country on what do we do with the 700,000 people who walk out of college, walk out of school, walk out of university, and there is no ready employment for them. Again, this is something that I spoke to and have a plan about. in our manifesto. And I can say confidently that for the first time, we have a demonstrable plan on how we are going to create jobs. Creating jobs is no longer an exercise in guesswork. We must be deliberate, we must be intentional, we must have a plan. And this evening, I want to tell you about 4 of the interventions that are currently underway that I committed to the people of Kenya in terms of how we are going to create jobs. Number 1 is labor mobility. And I have my team here. They're going to, I'll give them a chance to tell us what kind of progress are we making in that space of labor mobility. I have had occasion to personally sign off some of the bilateral labor agreements. I was in Germany with the German Chancellor. We've signed off with another 3 or 4 countries. As I talk to you, my team at the Ministry of Diaspora and the Ministry of Labor are working on 19 additional labor agreements, bilateral labor agreements with different countries. That's 1. And we're going to discuss the numbers shortly. Number 2 is the whole program around housing. How many jobs are we creating? For engineers, for architects, for quantity surveyors, for electricians, for plumbers, and a whole lot of them in that space. Number 3 is digital jobs. What are we doing in the digital job space? What are we doing with Jitume? What are we doing with Ajira program? What are we doing with all our TVETs? What are the numbers looking like? What is the 1,450 ICT hubs we are working with members of parliament to construct? How is that going to look? And shortly, we're going to share with you the numbers. And number 3, or is it number 4? The whole space around industrialization, manufacturing. What is it that we are doing? Why have we rolled out 47 county aggregation industrial parks? Why have we rolled out 6 new special economic zones? What are we doing with our manufacturing sector? Why have we put in place a policy framework that stops us from importing all manner of things? How do we produce steel locally? How do we produce cement locally? How do we take advantage of our young people and stop importing furniture? How do we, those are some of the policy interventions that we have passed through Parliament to build the capacity around our manufacturing, our industrial space. It is the reason, for example, that we put a levy on import of clinker. And as a result, we are producing clinker today in Kenya, we are exporting. Many companies that had closed down have now stepped up. It is the reason why steel, for example, I was in West Pokot a few months ago when we were setting up a huge plant for manufacture of clinker that will employ close to 5,000 people. Last weekend, I was in Taita Taveta. We have been, we have been mining iron ore and exporting in raw form. For the first time, we now are going to have a steel manufacturing facility in Kenya, and we will not be exporting raw materials of iron ore. We will be using it to produce steel here in Kenya. Again, because we have provided policy interventions. And our end game being creating jobs. It must be, as I said, deliberate, it must be intentional, and it must be something we can account for. So I could say one more thing, if you allow me, on BPO. On Wednesday, I will be signing into law the business bill that has just gone through Parliament, that now is going to provide a different space where we will now have the opportunity to encourage more companies. Many of you talk about Philippines and how they have managed to build their economy using BPO framework, and India for that matter. What has happened to us is that the law was very restrictive, and the law did not recognize BPOs as a job-creating enterprise. But the law we've just passed through Parliament now will encourage more companies. And I'm told in our midst we have Somerset. Are they here? Right. Those people there were taken to court and they had real trouble. They really bothered me. Now I can report to you that we have changed the law. So nobody will take you to court again on any matter. Right? And I'm talking about Somerset because they will tell us how many people they employ and what kind of trouble they were going through. And they were about to relocate most of their operations to Uganda because many of us were giving them trouble and we didn't have the correct space. Thank you very much, good people. I'll give you a chance to say something later. And many other companies. So these are the two things I thought we should have a conversation about. And I will take some of your questions on these two items. I don't know whether we do it sequentially or we do it, maybe we do it sequentially. Let's start with Hustler Fund. I will take some questions on Hustler Fund. Yes, my good friend? Or there is somebody else? Yes?
Excellency, my name is Vincent Oyugi. I'm the chairman of Gig Connect International. And thank you for the good job. On the Hustler Fund, my question is, personally, I've supported widows, over 10,000 on the table banking. Can the Hustler Fund be made available for the local widows back in the village? I come from Ugenya constituency and I've managed to support 10,000 widows. Unfortunately, the Hustler Fund is not accessible to them. Thank you so very much. Finally, can all these funds, Your Excellency, be consolidated? I'm a finance expert and we have so many finances within, from Youth Fund, Women Fund, Hustler Fund. Can we have a bill passed so that either we have 2 or 3 so that even the elderly like us, because I'm 40 years old, can be able to access some of these funds. Thank you so much.
Mr. Oyugi, 40 is not old. I'm told life starts at 40. I wonder, can the PS responsible for Hustler Fund, can you explain to Mr. Oyugi whether the women in the table banking space, whether they can have access to Hustler Fund?
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Make it brief.
Yes, the Hustler Fund is accessible to everybody, even those who have Mulika Mwizi. However, phone, you can still access Hustler Fund. You don't need any airtime, it's zero rated. But also, we have Hustler Fund group. When we launched, we realized that because of the digital divide, gender digital divide, so most of the women there were not accessing well. So, but right now we are engineering, and we are going to come to groups, so you can mobilize them into groups. We'll be onboarding them, and then we help them now how to access the group loan. So it's there, it is accessible. Thank you.
Yes, and Mr. Oyugi, I agree with you. In fact, there was, I wanted to bring together all these funds, but we have many stakeholders, and they are very protective about the different funds. But I think as we consolidate the practice and see which funds are doing well, I think we will eventually want to consolidate it into one fund. But I agree with you. I am a believer in table banking. I have seen what table banking can do, and it is the reason why we came up with a group loan. Maybe then you can liaise with my peers so that as they re-engineer, they can take into account some of your suggestions and the experiences you have from working with women under the table banking arrangement. Yes, young man from some school, I think.
Thank you, Your Excellency. My name is Simon Mugo from Kenyan Medical Training College. We do appreciate we as the young people for the efforts that you have put in place to ensure that we, the young people, we get job employment once we complete our schools, and also from various skills that we are having. History has demonstrated that there is some kind of mistreatment which are happening to our own people, those who have gone abroad, and let's say, just to mention like the Arab countries. What are some of the measures that you have put in place to ensure that our people are safe outside there? Thank you, Your Excellency.
Alfred Mutua, I'm sure you are somewhere in this. Yes, can you answer Simon? Simon says, what is it that we are doing to make sure that, is it you or is it Rosalind? Maybe you can have a go first.
What exactly, I missed the question, Your Excellency.
The question was, there are some people who are mistreated working abroad. What is government doing?
One of the challenges that we've had for a long time is the ability of Kenyans who face problems being able to connect with the government to be able to assist them. We have ensured that Kenyans that go to different countries go to countries that have signed the International Labour Organization agreements. So they adhere to international organizations agreements. However, we have found out that our embassies overseas have not been fully equipped to really sort out problems. For example, I remember in the case of one country that I went to, people say they couldn't access any help from the labor attaché or the ambassador. So we have set up systems, including phone numbers, and we are about to set up an app for people to be able to report when they are in problems. As I think Diaspora will be able to also explain, is that we have also set up safe houses so that you can actually leave your employer and go to a safe zone, which will be translating, you will be assisted to come home. Your Excellency, I'd like to clarify at this juncture that we hear many stories of people saying they went to a country, they're not allowed to come home, they can't access medical care, and all those things. What usually happens is that when you go to a country to work, you go under a visa. Most of the time the visa is tied in to the employer who employs you. When you decide to move jobs and quit that job and you go work in the street or go work for somebody else who's giving you more money, your visa gets cancelled. You are out of status. That means some of these countries, your medical care is tied to the employer. You cannot seek medical treatment from a hospital. When you go to the hospital, they arrest you and they ship you back home. So Kenyans, some of them don't want to be shipped back home. So we're trying to encourage Kenyans that before you quit your job, please talk to our labor attachés. Let us go through the process of seeing how you need to move from one job to another job. Yes, Excellency.
Thank you. Rosalind, I think you have some information. Maybe you could just say something.
Right. Thank you, Excellency. And to add on to what Waziri Mutua has said, as the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, we've set up structures in the diaspora to ensure that Kenyans who work in the diaspora are protected. That is usually within our ministries, within our Kenya missions abroad, so the embassy or the High Commission, and we really insist that Kenyans who go to work abroad really register with us so that we know that they are there. When we've seen distress, Your Excellency, we've moved very quickly to deal with that. As we speak, we have just evacuated over 800 Kenyans from Lebanon, where the war broke out, and we've been able to bring back, and we're about to close phase 3 of that evacuation. So we stand ready to support Kenyans. Waziri has also discussed the need for Kenyans to travel to countries where we have migration agreements or labor agreements, and we have embarked on telling Kenyans about where these safe places are. So we still see certain challenges where often the people who have been mistreated is because they have been trafficked as opposed to having migrated for work. We've had challenges with certain countries. We've had challenges with Kenyans being trafficked under the guise of finding jobs in Thailand, but really they end up being trafficked to Myanmar and places around that region, including some that we intervened with just this week, Your Excellency, during this Jamhuri National Job Fair, where certain Kenyans were on their way to Thailand, but really they were going to be trafficked to Myanmar. So we are offering information around these, what are safe opportunities. And whenever there are questions about, does this job really exist? Our ministry and the State Department for Diaspora Affairs can very quickly verify for you whether that job that you're seeing going around on WhatsApp is actually a legit job, or you're about to find yourself in a very difficult place.
Thank you, Rosalind. I think for those of you who wanted to ask that question, it is the reason why we are now signing bilateral labor agreements, so that we have an instrument to make sure that we can protect Kenyans wherever they are working. It is important, before you go to any destination, to know whether there is a bilateral labor agreement between that country and Kenya, because that is the framework where we can support you much more easily. The reason why I set up the State Department of Diaspora is exactly so that Rosalind can do what her and her team are doing, to support Kenyans in those spaces, to be able to validate some of the information you get in the internet. Make sure that you go under an arrangement where the government of Kenya knows, so that when you get into trouble, we can be able to assist you. Somebody had a yes?
Good evening. Good evening, Your Excellency. My name is Stacy Lumadi. I graduated in the
Give her a working mic, please. Sorry.
My name is Stacy Lumadi. I graduated in the year 2022, and since then I've not been employed. I understand the meaning of tarmacking. Currently pursuing Masters of Development in the University of Nairobi. And my question is on Kazi ya Maju. It's a good initiative, especially when you're looking at remittance impact on the economy. But there is a high processing fee for jobs, be it Qatar, be it Europe. Are there plans to initiate course for those getting jobs, even if it's providing loans?
Thank you very much, Ms. Lumadi. Alfred, you are the owner of that space.
That's a very good question. You see, the whole essence of jobs overseas are for you to be able to live here and go get a good job. Now, there are two kinds of jobs. There are two kinds of offers, mostly. There are companies that say, we want nurses, for example, or we want teachers, or we want riders, or we want ICT specialists. And we will pay for the preparation of those candidates to come to our country. We will pay their medical fee, we will pay their air transport, we will pay money for them to do the necessary tests they need to do at the station and all that. And they pay for everything, and the agency that gets a job will probably charge you maybe 10 or 20,000 for their processing fee, or will actually be paid by those companies a service fee, so they don't have to charge you anything. And those are now 100% what quote unquote free. Those are fine in between. Then there are others who say, for example, in Australia, who say they want nurses. They can take our nurses from medical training college who have diplomas, because they're not allowed to work as nurses in hospitals. They can work in nurses at aged care, making approximately 500,000 shillings a month. But before they go, they have to do certain exams that the Australian government wants them to do. And if you add up the exams, including English test, it comes to over 100,000 shillings. Then they have to pay their ticket to Australia, about $1,500. And then they have to pay etc. So you find that if you want to go to Australia, the Australians say, we want you here, but we're not going to pay for you to get here. You get here, we'll give you the job. And they give you the job before you get there. So when you get there, but then now you have to come up with 250,000 shillings. So you don't have to go, but if you choose to go, then you realize how much you have to pay. Now what we have done is that I have had meetings with financial institutions, and I've asked them, can you provide a facility to our young people who don't have money to go overseas, and they pay these fees for their ticket, etc., etc. And they said yes, but we need surety. I said, I'll write you a letter. They said no, because what has happened in the past is that a Kenyan will get a loan, as soon as they block the person who gave them the money, and they don't pay back. So they have had that history. So I have told them, you can't ask for a title deed for somebody who lives in a slum, or who lives in towns where the fathers don't have, the parents don't have a farm or something, or they don't have a car. So we have agreed that they can come to your house and they can look at what you have, what your mother or father has. Uko na TV moja, uko na couch moja, and then they can cost it, and they say, we're going to give you a loan on this as a guarantor. So that now, if you don't pay the loan, they take your mother's bed. So that will actually will help you actually process the loan. So we are trying many ways, and as the president has said, with the BLAs, we are pushing for companies that are actually pay for some of the costs, especially the cost of air transport, which are usually very high.
Thank you. I think we have something else. Can PS SME say something? I think we have another ecosystem over here.
Thank you, Your Excellency. In our ecosystem of MSME, we have Youth Enterprise Fund. And the Youth Enterprise Fund have a migration loan, labor migration loan. And the figures I have, they have processed so far 78 million and supported 354 young people. So this is available, but we're trying to see how do we even expand that ecosystem. Also urging our other agencies like Uwezo Fund. So our other agencies like Uwezo Fund also to introduce that financial product so that we get to support you, to facilitate you, also to leave something behind to your family, because that is always a challenge. Thank you.
Yes. So as you have heard, it comes all the way from jobs that everything is paid for, including air tickets, to a situation where nothing is paid for. And there are all manner of in-betweens. But the CEO of the Youth Fund, Mr. Yes, you remember I had a conversation with you, and he can confirm that he has a financial product. Can you confirm to Lumadi, yes, that indeed under our youth fund there is a product that they can tap into?
Thank you, Your Excellency. Yes, indeed, I confirm that in the youth fund we have a migration loan. The limit for that is 300,000 Kenyan shillings, and so far the statistics are as read by the PS. Yes, I confirm, Your Excellency.
So those of you who are looking for an opportunity, there is an opportunity funded by the government of Kenya, and if there are limitations, I am ready to enhance the budget to them so that we can get more. When he mentioned it to me, I told him that that is a good product, And we agreed that if they get to the limit, we can extend their limit. Okay? All right. Maybe a question from this end.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. My name's Ezekiel Onyango, but you can call me Easy. I'm currently the chairperson of Kenya Film and Television Professionals Association. Professionally, I'm a researcher in the cultural and creative industries. I have a master's degree from the University of Manchester in that area, and a creative economy expert who has worked globally with organizations like IFC, AU, and the World Conference on the Creative Economy. I stand before you today as someone who has worked for almost 2 decades as a film producer in Kenya and a creative economy practitioner, who was successfully managed to transition into a professional. We stand at a very critical time in our country, and the question of jobs is one that the creative economy can easily respond to. It's only the creative economy in the whole world that...
Easy. Take it easy. Because I was expecting a question from you, but you've given me a lecture, which is good. Because from Manchester, it's good to get some experience. But can you make it brief?
The sweet spot is always in the context, and I have learned from watching the way you have contextualized the conversation today. So I only thought it would be fair for me to put some context before my question, if you allow me, sir. Thank you. Bottom-up policies that promote the growth of talent-driven sectors like ours have been proven to work, especially in the creative economy, as we have witnessed in countries like Indonesia, where in 2023 they reported 4% contribution of GDP, which is equivalent to what the tourism sector has contributed in Kenya. While we appreciate the bottom-up strategy that you have, that has given us the State Department for Youth and Creative Economy, we as the creative industry experts feel like there is a tension where there is a bottom-up strategy but a top-down approach in implementation, where the industry has been left out, and that has left the State Department with systemic inefficiencies, and 2 years in, we are yet to even have a roadmap or a plan of how we can fix our systemic challenges. Before my question, I'll say to you 3 important areas that we need to address urgently as a country for the creative economy to respond. Number 1 is outdated policy frameworks, the case of old laws trying to tackle new problems. Number 2 is intellectual property. To every creative person, that is our title deed. That is our bargaining power. When IP is not protected, then we have nothing. And number 3 is the problem of piracy, the small endemic that has injured Kenya and no one speaks about. I can be able to demonstrate that in one financial year, Kenya loses close to 92 billion shillings because of piracy, both to government and industry. To my question, how does your administration plan, through the State Department, to resolve these issues inclusively, decisively, and set up a ground where these creative economies can grow and respond to job creation? Why I ask this question is, if we are not careful, there will come a time very soon where all the commerce that happens in the creative industry will happen overseas. Production will happen locally, consumption will happen locally, but the platforms in which we do our commerce will all be abroad. So what strategies can we put in place to ensure that creative technologies are integrated in the better plan to respond to IP challenges, the problem of piracy, and the problem of outdated policy frameworks? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, my good friend. I don't have the people from the youth department here, but let me just mention to you that the reason why I made a policy decision that the sports fund, which initially had been spread to cover many things, including building, that must now stop. We concentrate the sports fund on matters to do with sports, and the creatives. That is policy direction number one. Number two, you have said correctly about outdated laws. It is the thing I was struggling with, even with the BPOs. And it is the reason why on Wednesday, we will be signing off to change the law in the employment space. I agree with you that outdated laws have created a big problem for us. Whether we are talking about what we can do around the film, around the whole creative space. And I remember we intellectual property and piracy.
So on intellectual property and piracy, sir, Easy has actually been involved in the crafting of the Creative Economy Bill. And he's still with a few amendments, and he's in the working group. So in fact, the challenge will be back to him to ensure that he helps us to ensure that we get it back and good and going. However, he's raised two key issues, both if you allow me to respond to him. Yes. The first one is on the commerce of the creative economy. The president went to the USA and interacted, including with Hollywood stars at Tyler Perry Studios. And one of the things that the president is now working on is for a space for the creative economy. We all appreciate that Nairobi on Sundays has become an open theater where people are actually shooting. Ahead of Easy there is a gentleman from Grammy Awards, and there is also something there you are doing around the Grammy Awards for Africa. And we have actually instructed the State Department to pay. Has already given instructions, and I've written to you a letter from our Office of Creative Economic Coordination for us to begin bidding for the World Creative Economy Conference.
Can confirm that that is the direction we are going. And so I think back to you, the motions are going through in Parliament. The creative bill is going through specifically to remove the challenges you have highlighted, to update the law so that we remove outdated legislation, to provide for a sure footing on matters intellectual property, and also to deal with the challenge of piracy. And we couldn't agree. Agree with you more. And thank you very much, Easy, for being part of the solution by offering your move to the jobs. I have a gentleman there, and then I have a lady here. Okay? Yes?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Yeah, my name is Moguna Victor from Kenyan Medical Training College. And my question stems from the statistics that you have given us today, that 24 million borrowers are borrowing the Hustler Fund, but only 8 million are the active borrowers. So how is the government ensuring that this over-indebtedness is catered for, and the insurance that the funds is going to continue providing the loans to the borrowers?
Who are not doing well. And we believe that at some point they will wake up to the reality that this is the best product they can ever get. So that's the case. And for your information, we have continuous because the repayment rate around Hustler Fund is around 80%. So we have a big resource that is revolving. Most of the money is actually revolving. We just add a little money every year to make sure that we keep.
Much His Excellency, Domestic Chair of Association called Association of Skilled Migrant Agencies of Kenya. I deal with the distress cases for all those girls who go out there and they have distress. And I'm also an agent. I'm a director of Samurai Recruitment Agents. I've been in this industry for the past 12 years. And first of all is to congratulate you, because we've never heard of this or seen this before, of a president who is caring for our children, especially me being a mother. I feel so bad when you because one will bring this issue of our youths being denied funds, freight. They cannot be able to pay for the freight or to manage to get the money to process their documentation, since simply because they have been out of school. Blown, and it is good because you have come up with the solution. But the only thing we can say, or we can advise, or we can request you, Your Excellency, tembea kule nje, open those doors so that we can have more bilateral agreements. Tuache kutega ordinary 3 markets. In our licenses, they are indicated very well that we can only deploy housemaids or house managers to Qatar, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. We have so many bilateral agreements that are in some of these desks that have not been signed. And the only solution that we can get here, it is by opening those bilateral agreements. Hata vijana wetu hawatahitaji kukopa hizo loans, because once we have more markets, our skills, we have more demands, and we will.
We had said that we concentrate on Hustler Fund, but everybody is going to. I think jobs is a big thing. Okay, let's have a conversation about jobs. So, Madam Ryuki, you have said that you are among the recruitment agencies, is that right? So you're among the lucky ones because we had 1,000 honest Kenyans who want to do an honest job and they want to support our young people. It is, Madam Ryuki, I have taken it upon myself to have a diaspora desk, a diaspora state department, whose job is to scout and make sure that clinical officers, engineers, and all the other categories.
Just this year, Your Excellency, we signed an agreement with Germany that opens up a skilled workers market for Kenyans to play in that space. KPI, and we have an entire Excellency agency that is specifically tasked with diaspora placement.
Who are going into that space. And it is important for me to ask.
Here, these are the opportunities, this is what is needed, so that regardless of where you are in the country, you have a chance to come and compete for those opportunities.
I know in this auditorium we have recruitment agencies. We have people who run recruitment agencies. Is that correct? Are they here? Can anybody who is running a recruitment agency, can they stand up? So all you good people are in that space. Let's clap a round of applause for them. Asanteni sana, you can take your seats. I want at least one or two of you to step forward and tell us